Welcome back to another video, everybody. We have a lot to discuss in this one as we get into a very crazy trading day tomorrow. I'm going to give you guys all of the different kind of scenarios here that could play out with CPI tomorrow and what you guys should expect out of this really significant piece of data that we are going to be seeing. Now, in addition, we're going to talk a little bit about these new developments between the US and a lot of these other countries here in these trade negotiations. And as always, we're going to be covering some of the most relevant pieces of news as well as the charts on some of your guys' favorite names here: Palantir, Neo, SoFi, and HIMS here, to give you guys a good expectation of what to obviously expect next. So before we get into all of that information, everybody, if you guys do enjoy the information and analysis I provide for you guys in these videos here, make sure you go down and hit that like button. Costs you nothing to do it, but it helps me out a whole lot, spreading this information out to as many people who actually want to learn. And again, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you never miss another one of these videos as soon as they are posted live. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, massive shout out to all of the members of my private trading and investing community. Less trades, more profits. Again, I'm going to throw up some of the gain screenshots over here. I mean, what do you guys expect at this point? I'm calling out these moves every single week for the group. People are making boatloads of money in there with us. It's absolutely awesome to see all of your guys' success each and every single day in there, everybody. But again, for those of you guys that do want to hop in, I mean, quite honestly, I have no idea why more people don't trade the way we do in the market. But again, use code July, get 50% off your first month there. It literally only comes out to $1 a day, and you get access to absolutely everything. We'd love to have you in there. So first things first, when we come over here and take a look at this article right here that does a pretty good job of giving us the backdrop of what to expect going into CPI tomorrow, the median estimate for the consumer price index for the month of June 2025 is 2.6%. If 2.6% is the actual year-over-year increase in the CPI, it will mark the highest number since February 2025, 2.8%, and also mark the second consecutive month in which the number has increased. However, it will also be below the trailing 12-month average of 2.7%. So what they're outlining here is that we do have the potential, and the market in general is expecting CPI to be a little bit higher than it was previously. But again, it is still under those 12-month averages. And the reason why a lot of these inflation expectations for CPI have been moving up is, well, obviously people are looking at these new tariffs, the tariffs that have already been in place, and expecting, well, this might be the time that we actually start seeing the effects of these tariffs, if we are actually going to see some sort of an effect. But when we come over here and take a look at Trueflation, we can see that a month ago we saw that year-over-year rate was about 2.08%, and we are seeing now that that rate is now down to about 1.71%. Now, again, Trueflation isn't the most accurate data source here, but it has been spot on many times in the past with what the overall inflation rate actually is out in the marketplace. So really what we have to think about going into tomorrow is that if CPI does come in at expectations, I think the market can brush that off and think with a little bit of logic here and really a good understanding of actually what's happening in the marketplace, that even if we are to see a little bit of a short-term increase to a couple of these price levels, it is not going to be long-lasting and really should not change a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. The problem would be is that if CPI came in much higher than what the market is actually expecting, because those projections are already a little bit elevated. If CPI can come in a little bit lower, well, that could even juice this market a little bit higher. And when we take a look at where the market is currently sitting, again, we have really just been consolidating right at these highs here, and the market's really been waiting for some additional information on what to do next. Is it going to be some more positive developments between the US and a lot of these other countries in their trade negotiations, or is it going to be some piece of economic data here, such as a CPI report, that could really increase the argument for rate cuts coming a little bit sooner than what a lot of these Fed officials in the present are currently expecting? Now, just a couple of other things that are very notable that I want everybody to understand and be aware of as we go through the rest of this week here is we did receive some comments from Hassett this morning. Trade talks still underway with the EU, Canada, and Mexico. Obviously, the market is going to be bracing for what happens with CPI tomorrow, but we still have these new trade negotiations kind of hanging over everybody's head right now. Now, what I will also really want to touch on again here, we talk about this a lot in the daily live streams. Again, I'm live for everybody for free publicly on YouTube every single day at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So if you guys wanted to come join those, we'd love to have you in there. But this situation with the dollar index specifically, is very interesting. Remember, we saw in the first and second quarters of 2025 a significant amount of foreign money that was heavily concentrated in US assets fleeing and being repatriated back to those domestic countries there. Now that we have seen the market get to these all-time highs, well, a lot of these foreign investors and a lot of these institutional investors in the US as well have realized that they have been incorrect on their assumption that US markets were going to continue to head lower and continue to outperform this year. Now, what we're seeing now is the dollar is starting to strengthen versus that basket of a lot of other currencies. If the dollar starts moving aggressively to the upside, you might hear a lot of talking heads trying to label this as a bearish development, but you also have to think about the context of a lot of these developments here too. Who is buying, when they are buying, what are they actually going to be buying, and why? When you start to see a lot of this foreign money flowing back into the US, it's really an admission that there is no alternative to US assets in the short, medium, and long term here. So let's get into this first name over here. This is going to be Palantir. So again, this is one we've been talking a lot about on the streams. It has been relatively choppy here at the highs, and we are now seeing it break out very, very close to 52-week highs today, or really all-time highs today. Now, this is one that I was looking for a potential trade setup on. It didn't get enough days of consolidation for me to be really interested in this one here as well, but Palantir in general, guys, especially for you guys that are new to the market, this is one that you probably want to stay away from. It's one that I've said many, many times before. It's definitely not one that you would short, but it definitely isn't one that I would go out and start buying in the open market right now. This one is wildly overvalued in the short term, but that does not mean it cannot continue trading at higher levels. This is a favorite of the market, and again, they are doing everything that they need to in order to continually have success as a business, from their commercial revenue growth as well as their government revenue growth. We can see over here that President Trump to announce $70 billion AI and energy investment in Pennsylvania, with Palantir CEO Alex Karp attending. We might see some of this money go towards Palantir. Again, Palantir already has such a close relationship with the US government, and I would not be surprised at all if we were to continue seeing Palantir get more and more government contracts down the road. Now, the next one over here is going to be NIO. Now, remember, this is a risky one in my opinion here. This is probably the riskiest kind of position that I have in my portfolios here. I own about 4,000 shares at 455. Really not a big position for me at all. But this one is all going to come down to execution, and if they can hit a lot of these profitability goals that they have outlined for the broad market here, their investor base, their customer base, and anybody else that's interested in NIO, really going into the end of this year, in the beginning of next year. Now, one of the main reasons why NIO has seen this sharp increase in price action recently is due to the fact, again, this rise is apparently driven by the pre-sales of the Onvo L90 last Thursday. The large three-row SUV began pre-sales on July 10th, with an official launch scheduled for the end of this month and delivery set to begin on August 1st here. So again, this price came out much lower than many had anticipated, and something that we've been talking about a lot on this channel here whenever we talk about NIO is that their kind of flagship models under the NIO brand are positioned as luxury electric vehicles. In this type of global macroeconomic environment, well, it's going to be very difficult for a lot of these consumers to justify spending that money on one of these more expensive vehicles when there are lower priced vehicles out there that can do effectively the same things for them. That's why Firefly and Onvo could be what really is able to drive NIO forward in the future. And as kind of global economic conditions get better for more and more people over the next couple of years, hopefully, then you can start to see that flagship or those flagship models really starting to drive some of that revenue growth. But seeing this development here, again, that is exactly what you want to see out of NIO. But what I will say is that when you do typically see these very, very aggressive movements to the upside here out of NIO, it's very likely that we are due for a short-term pullback on NIO in the near future. Now, ideally, if we want to see more continued bullish momentum, we want to get above this 200 exponential moving average here in red, and then start to retest that area and form a period of consolidation. We made an attempt of this back in early March here, but NEO was not able to hold, and it ended up selling through this big range of support that it was actually holding really over the last year or so here. But seeing NEO back up is obviously, again, a positive development, but again, it's always going to come down to how well they're able to execute, if at all, over the next couple of quarters. Now, guys, the next name that we absolutely need to discuss in this video here is SoFi. So for those of you guys that have been around this channel really over the last month and a half here, congratulations to all of you that took full advantage of this big weekly breakout that I was outlining for you guys really over the last month here. We are seeing new 52-week highs on SoFi here, trading at $21.35 here, as the market is starting to give it a little bit more love as we get into earnings season, and seeing SoFi again going to be reporting their earnings on Tuesday, July 29th here. Now, again, when you see a stock make very, very significant moves to the upside in a short period of time, that is not a buy signal. I want to make that very clear to everybody. If you were not longing SoFi down at that weekly breakout area, down below this 200 EMA, you are taking on a significant amount of risk buying SoFi at these levels. Remember, I own this at 655. All my group is in this name here, down below that $7 to $8 area. I know some of them were even getting it lower than I was, lower than my average at 655. The stock is now trading at 2134. At this point in the kind of the investment cycle with something like SoFi, we are always going to be thesis driven. If there is something massively thesis breaking about this name that comes out, then I might be getting out of this position. But other than that, which I don't obviously expect to actually happen, I do think SoFi is going to perform very well. But any short-term price craziness that we do see with SoFi is, to me, quite honestly meaningless. Like, this one could drop back down to 15, 14, 12, and I would probably end up buying more, especially if the overarching thesis is going to remain intact. We continue to see significant user growth. We continue to see them releasing more products, specifically in the crypto space, for their existing customer base, which can then help drive even more revenues in the future. But this one, again, is positioned to have a lot of success over the next couple of quarters and next couple of years. Now, moving on to the last name that I want to talk about with you guys in this video here, we're going to be talking about Hims. This is another retail favorite that has performed very, very well over the last year or so for any investors in this name. Again, you guys all know at this point, I was outlining this one at 30 to 31 for the group on the internet here with everybody. So congratulations for those of you guys that are in this down at these lower levels. And honestly, really good for a lot of you guys that were listening to all the warnings that I was giving you guys up in here at this upper 50, mid 60 range here on Hims, that was really not the best time to start initiating new positions or adding to your position. Again, we obviously saw that drop after Novo Nordisk canceled that partnership with Hims. But what I will say right now is that we are setting up a very solid short-term bullish setup on Hims. It does not mean that it's going to play out, and it's not really a textbook perfect setup here, but when we see, again, this big drop, this nice move back to the upside, and a good period of consolidation here, you could definitely make the argument for a short-term trade on Hims here if we are able to break this 52.31 area, and potentially a couple of those targets here could be some of these gap fills after that big drop down day after Novo Nordisk terminated that partnership. And if Hims can continue to kind of follow through with some more good news off of that breakout, you easily could see Hims back at the highs there. But again, you do really want to see a little bit more consolidation. And with CPI coming out this week, and with all of this craziness that could unfold in the market, this could just be a name where we leave it be, we watch our positions, and just make sure that we are really kind of operating with that long-term vision on specifically names like Hims, SoFi, Palantir, or maybe even NEO here. So guys, that is going to wrap up this video. If you did enjoy the information and analysis that I provided for you guys in this one, make sure you go down and hit that like button. Costs you nothing to do it, but it helps me out a whole lot in spreading this information out to as many people who actually want to learn. And again, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you're notified every time these videos go live. But until next time, guys, I will see you. Peace.